up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 8 of the Just Sayin Podcast here with your co-hosts, Jake and Sutton. We just got done with week 2. It was crazy. It was insane. So we're going to be going over some of the games, review our best bets. We can kind of keep it at best bets again.
A tremendous turnaround this week. I mean, I think we both did fairly well.
The only way to go was up from yours last week. What'd you go? 1 for 10, 1 for 8, something
really bad. But we flipped the script this week. I love it. We love to see it.
Let's go. So we'll hit on a little bit of the Mel Tucker drama, not too much though, and then give our pre-week 3 top 25. I'm not sure about you, but mine, of course, took some shaking.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you want to go ahead and jump into the game this week, as a Bama fan, you were in the stadium for that game. I was in Tuscaloosa, and it was a lot of fun. But what are your takeaways from the game?
Actually, I kind of want to get your takeaways before I give mine. Just as a non-biased fan, as a fan who didn't really have a stake in the game, I kind of want to hear your thoughts and opinions.
Yeah. I'm really excited to hear yours, but for me, I didn't think Bama looked bad. But by no means do they look good. I think they had a lot of good things. I think their defensive line did decent. I think their secondary did kind of decent. On deep balls, no. But on short to intermediate, I thought they were really rallying to the football. Texas couldn't really run the ball. Bama was getting off the field on a lot of third and shorts and everything like that. So I think Bama did a decent job. But I left with some wide open mistake. I don't even know what you would call them. Just, I don't know how they're going to get fixed. I'm really interested to see how you take away from the O-line, because they were getting whipped all game. And that was supposed to be probably Alabama's best position group, O-line. And they looked atrocious. If it wasn't for Jalen Milroe being the best quarterback runner in college football, he probably would have been sacked 7 times.
He was sacked 5 times. So, I mean.
Oh, he was sacked 5? Okay, he would have been sacked probably for 10 plus.
Yeah.
I thought he was only sacked like 2 or 3. I thought they only got home. And then Jalen Milroe, he could have played worse, but he did not play good by any means. I don't like people overreacting, saying he's a running back at quarterback, because he has an arm. He drops bombs on deep balls, but his decision making is not there. I don't know if it ever will be, but he can't go past his first read. It's similar to Anthony Richardson, where I've already compared the two before. Great athlete, has a strong arm, but just doesn't have a quarterback mind yet. I'm not saying he won't. I'm not saying he can't. He has a lot of potential, but right now he is very far away from being able to make decisions and going through his reads, because I'm sure you've heard people talk about it. I'm sure you've seen it where he would lock on to guys, and that's how they got their 2 picks, because he locked on directly. I think one was Jermaine Burton. I don't know who the other one was. I think they were both DBs, just went to him and intercepted the ball. They made it look easy, because for them that was easy. So Bama, I already didn't think was, in a great spot, in terms of their quarterback and wide receivers and O-line. Because I told you I wasn't exactly worried about it, but they didn't play that well against MTSU. And so especially after this game, where they were bad, they were atrocious. I'm worried for Alabama's offense in the future, not worried for their defense. I think Texas hanging up 34, it could have been worse. But Texas made it look like a home game for them. They were not rattled by Alabama, by their fans. And don't get me wrong, it was loud. I'm not saying like Texas was loud in there. It was shaking. You could hear it through the TV. But from the aspect that I don't know exactly how many penalties Texas had, but Bama had 10 penalties for like 100 yards. And it was similar to that game in Austin last year, where they had 100 plus yards of penalties, probably 12 to 15 penalties. And, a lot of them were pre-snap and things like that, because they were playing on the road. And that's what I expected Texas to look like. And then finally, I'll nail down one of our best bets, your best bet from last week. It was Jalen Milroe over 262.5 rushing and passing yards. I got it wrong, but I was actually exactly correct, where I got it wrong because I said if Alabama's running backs are averaging over, I think I said 4.5, maybe 5, he's not going to hit the threshold. But if they're struggling, if they don't run for more than 3.5 yards a carry, he's going to hit it because they're going to have to rely on him more. That's exactly what happened. Alabama could not run the ball. I put that more on the line, but the backs didn't look great. They didn't look very explosive. Couldn't really break tackles, and credit that to Texas defense as well. But Bama's running backs averaged 3.3 yards a carry. So they really had to put a lot on Jalen Milroe's back, and so he was tasked with a lot. And I mean, I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, so I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with the your comparison to the game last year. This looks like 2022 Alabama. Except the offense is worse and the defense is a little bit better. So I mean, like the penalties and all that have been a huge point of emphasis all offseason. Nick Saban and multiple team captains have talked about how they've wanted to be more disciplined, play with a lot more discipline, like those early Alabama teams you saw that won national championships, and that was just not the case on Saturday night. I mean, I think it was 10 penalties compared to 4. And you can really get nitpicky with some of the penalties that they called. I mean, I thought there was one pass interference call that probably wasn't pass interference.
Are you talking about the one on AD, or sorry, yeah, the one on AD on the trick play?
Was it? It was when Terry and Arnold got hurt. He didn't come back in the game, so
I didn't know he got hurt, but it was Terry on Arnold. But they were picking on him.
Tripped up. Well, the route. What I don't understand is, yes, what Terrian did disrupt the receiver, but there's a 2-part to the rule. The rule is the ball has to be catchable. Well, whoever threw the pass, I don't remember if it was the reverse or not, but they threw a vertical route when the receiver ran a post route. So the ball wasn't even in a 20-yard radius of the receiver, but they called a pass interference penalty on it. And that extended the Texas drive because that was on like 3rd and 7. And Alabama at this point, I think, had the lead. And who knows? I'm not saying that we would win if we got that ball there, but Texas did drive it down the field and score a touchdown after that after that penalty was called. And obviously once Terrian came out, they keyed in on Trey Amos, and AD Mitchell had like a 60-yard touchdown catch. But yeah, I think let's start for my analysis. I thought that we ran the ball at will in the first half. I mean, it looked like we could not be stopped running the ball. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 yards every carry. And I was just like, keep doing it. Like, why would we even throw the ball if they can't stop the run? I mean, and then Tommy Rees would call a pass play. And it's like a pass play on first down. It's like, why would you do that? Like they can't stop you running the ball. Why would you call a pass play on first down when we know what this team's identity is going to be? And I think that we got away from the run game in the second half, obviously, because we were down. It's kind of hard to stick with it. But once we didn't stick with it, we couldn't run the ball. And we became one-dimensional in the passing game, which is already our biggest struggle on offense. I mean, it's no secret that everybody knows the passing game at Alabama this year was going to be questionable coming into the year. And I think we left with many more questions from Saturday night than we had going into the game. So I think really, I mean, in terms of, I put a lot of the blame on Tommy Rees. I mean, I think just play calling wasn't that great. Sequencing wasn't great. I mean, it felt like run, pass every time. We kept putting ourselves in 3rd and long, like third and medium, 3rd and long downs where there are obvious passing downs, or there's downs where we know that Milroe is going to have to scramble or create. I mean, I felt like every time we got a 3rd down and 7 converted to a first down, it was a freaking miracle. Every ball Milroe was throwing was contested. Bond, Benson, and Burton had like 3 amazing catches on 3rd down to even keep the drives alive. And I think a couple with interceptions, which was like, wow, I wish we would have just planted the ball or not got those first downs. But I think the worst part to me is I have never, as a fan of Alabama, seen one singular player absolutely hated more than Jalen Milroe has been hated. I think honestly he's a scapegoat for Nick Saban's failures. And I'm going to call out Nick Saban here. I think he has failed the last 3 years. He has absolutely failed this program. I mean, just in terms of decisions he's made as with coaching hires, decisions he's made on the recruiting trail, philosophy minded. I mean, he's really let some of our players down. And this was no exception, in my opinion. I thought that Jalen Milroe has been the scapegoat for Nick Saban. He has taken all the blame when that blame needs to be thrown on this coaching staff and not him. I think, and a lot of fans won't agree with me, but I think Jalen Milroe played just about as good as you could have hoped him to play. Obviously, the two hold on. And when I say this, the two interceptions, obviously, the first one was a pre-check that he missed. That wasn't even really involving the play. It was just, he got up to the line, didn't quite see the coverage right on the left side, and then just threw it right to the guy. I mean, it happens. Sometimes it happens. You're not going to expect perfection, especially from him. The second interception, have no idea what he was thinking. But then again, he's only started 3 games in his career. He's a very young quarterback, and I think he'll get better with his decisions the more he plays. But you can't put a value on game time experience. And you know that too with Carson Beck. I mean, obviously Georgia hasn't faced a team that's going to threaten them yet, but you can tell that the wheels aren't quite as turning as well as Georgia fans would want them to be, just because Carson Beck doesn't have that experience. And I think it's the same for Jalen Milroe. I just think the difference is Alabama played the number 11 team in the country week 2, and Georgia's not going to have to play their top team until later on in the year, which is a scheduling advantage. But I mean, that's just kind of how it lined up for Alabama. And I mean, I think coming away from this game, I'm not as displeased in Alabama as I am impressed with Texas. I mean, like you said, that crowd was unreal. I've never been to an Alabama game where a crowd's been that much of a factor. And Texas absolutely silenced it. I mean, you got to give them all the credit in the world. They look like the team. I personally think they could have beat any team Saturday night in college football. The way they played, they could have lined up on a neutral field, maybe even on every away field, and beat any team in college football the way they played. Quinn Ewers was amazing, nothing short of amazing. They didn't quite run the ball well in the first half, but in the second half, because they threw the ball so well, that set up for their runs. And you could tell CJ Baxter and Brooks were starting to break through in the second half. And their O-line, I mean, absolutely dominated our defensive front. And that's where another place that I can't really figure out. Should I be more concerned in the secondary or the defensive front? Personally, I think it's the defensive front. We had 0 sacks. I mean, and we've got guys like Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, who we know are capable pass rushers. But is that a designing flaw, or is that them just not playing well? I don't know. But I know this: the second best receiving core in college football is Texas, obviously behind Ohio State. You can't expect our corners, who are very good corners, and you can even admit we have probably a top 5 secondary in college football. You can't expect them to hang with A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy for a whole 4-quarter game and more than 4 or 5 seconds each play, because those receivers are just going to get open. That's what happens. And when you're not pressuring Quinn Ewers and he's getting out of the pocket with nothing in his face, he's going to throw dots, and we saw it. And dude is an absolute, probably a top 5 quarterback in college football. I mean, looked great. So
yeah, let me
go ahead. I've still got some more to talk about, but go ahead. I know you guys.
Yeah, it was just things you've already referenced, so I don't want to get too far out ahead. But about the scapegoat, Jalen Milroe being the scapegoat, he definitely is. And I agree 100% with you. I was watching a podcast earlier talking about how Nick Saban, people think, or this guy thought, once Nick Saban won it in 2020, something clicked in his head. He had arguably one of the best teams ever, not best defense, but probably his best offense ever.
Oh, yeah.
And then at that point, he became complacent and was satisfied and started doing more on-air things. He's going on Pat McAfee every Thursday now. I feel like he already has a foot out the door, not necessarily wanting to leave, and he's still going to coach hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he conceded this loss, but I mean, like you said, it's definitely on him, and he's the head coach, and he needs to take responsibility. I don't know if he has. I don't know what excuses.
He said,
okay, good for him. But
he's always been a guy that's done that. I mean,
the reason Jalen Milroe is the scapegoat One, is he the greatest QB ever? No. Is he the worst? No. But ever since Bama became a dynasty, they had bad QBs, bad to average QBs for AJ McCarron might have been above average, but on any other team, he would have been average. So they had bad to average QBs until Jalen Hurts. They Blake Sims, Jake Coker, all these guys.
Really,
They
AJ was the only one that was notable, really, until Jalen
Yeah,
Hurts.
and AJ McCarron on any other team would have been just another guy. He wasn't that great.
He
Anyway,
finished second in the Heisman.
until Jalen Hurts, they didn't have great QBs, but they had a great defense to back it up, and so they made their QBs look good and a great. I mean, they had the number one wide receiver core in the nation for the longest time, and so their QBs were never the blame. And then when your defense started to take a hit after Kirby Smart left, that's when y'all got great QBs: Jalen Hurts, Tua, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, 4 straight good QBs, great QBs. And then now when y'all don't have a great QB and the defense is the worst it's probably ever been under Nick Saban, maybe not the worst, close to the worst. I mean, they have to put it on someone. You don't think it's close to the worst? I mean, last year was probably the worst.
I think Texas scoring 13 points in the first half was a humongous win for Alabama, because I think if you hold a team with the offensive capability like Texas to 13 points in the first half, 13 points through 3 quarters, I mean, I can't speak enough about how good our defense played. They just broke down in the fourth quarter because they kept being on the field and they were put in terrible situations. I mean, think about all the times Texas got the ball on their side of the field, on our side of the field. I mean, it happened quite a few times because of interceptions and things like that. Obviously, we didn't prevent explosive plays. Well, I mean, they had 2 long touchdown passes, but I mean, like I said, you can only hold those receivers for so long. Your offense has to respond, and ours didn't. So no, I think this is a very good defense. I think that showed on Saturday, and they're only going to get better as the year goes on. And we've got some injuries back there too. Malachi wasn't playing at 100%. Jalen Key wasn't playing at 100%. Jahad Campbell didn't even play. Trez Marshall sucks. So, I mean, that's kind of just.
Didn't he lead the team in tackles?
I don't care what he did. Dude couldn't cover the flat to save his life. Dude couldn't cover the flat.
5 solo tackles.
I don't care. Could not cover the flat to save his life. So,
and I will say, Caleb Downs gonna be an absolute stud, gonna be generational eventually, but he's still a true freshman, and he looked like a true freshman this game. They targeted him and Kerryon Arnold the whole.
Yeah, and that's the same with Caden Proctor on the O-line. So, and that's my problem with the O-line is, so I feel like you can give some leeway to these freshman players, right? It's their second game in college football. You're not 100%. Expecting Caden Proctor to go out there and be an All-American his freshman year. He is the best option. But older guys, seniors like Seth McLaughlin, who's snapping the ball, ground balls back to Jalen Milroe every time. You don't know what that does to a quarterback. They have to take their eyes off the downfield to pick up the ball and then look back up and refine their route. And he's obviously already a guy that struggles with progressions. So how much does that probably affects him tremendously. And then at right guard, Darian Dalcourt couldn't block anything. I mean, his first 5 snaps, the guy got past him every single snap. And then Saban didn't want to substitute anybody in. So really the only 2 guys on the O-line that have played well are Booker and Latham, and they're on different sides of the O-line. So really both sides of the O-line I'd rather just put crap on both the left side and have good on the right. So Milroe can at least run to the right every time. So yeah, the offensive line has been absolute embarrassment through the first couple weeks. Nothing like we were told we were going to have this offseason. I don't even like the running backs numbers. I don't put that on the running backs. I think they're fine. I just think the O-line just has to be better. And I think that Alabama could see some changes on the O-line this upcoming week. And then another thing that we brought up with about sacks. Sure, Jalen Milroe held onto the ball. I know one of the sacks was his fault just because he held onto the ball too long. But the other 4 sacks obviously were breakdowns in pass pro and in coveraging. But you cannot tell me, Jake, that if Tyler Buckner or Ty Simpson were in the game, that we wouldn't have had like 12 or 13 sacks on offense.
Yeah. No,
Because
I'm
do
with
you realize
Jalen
how many times Jalen Milroe got out of the pocket and got away from sacks? And that's what
Yeah,
Alabama fans, when they are calling for the backup quarterback to come in the game, that's something they don't think about. They just think about, oh, maybe this guy's going to be a better passer. Well, if you don't have time to throw the ball and you can't get outside the pocket, it doesn't matter if they're a better passer or not. They're going down. And
I
that's
am.
and that's why Jalen Milroe is more valuable than those guys. Not only does he have the rapport, but he can get out of the pocket and he can get away from situations like that when he needs to.
I am 100% with you. Do I think he's the best quarterback in this group? No, I don't know who is. That's not great options.
Please tell me who the best one is. I would love to know.
However, for this Alabama team, I think he's by far the best option,
Yes.
and you saw why. Because any other QB they have on that roster is getting sacked 10 times, 10 plus times a game.
So and here's
And
my
so
thing.
hold on, I'm definitely with you. But I mean, I don't think he's probably the fourth best passer on this team because he's not good. He's not a great QB. He can't really read, and he doesn't have the best intermediate ball. He has a great deep ball, but I mean, I think that's why Bama fans get so mad because he isn't the best passer on the team, but they don't accurately analyze how many sacks he avoids and the true difference he's making.
Well, also, I don't think they're calling plays suited for him. I mean, he should not be taking 3-step and 5-step dropbacks. He's not a quarterback that's going to do that. It needs to be more of a not like a read option, quick read type, not like a triple option, but like a read option type offense where he looks at two receivers and then takes off rather than standing in the pocket. I don't like that. And that's another thing. That's on the coaches. I mean, they should have recognized that by now. But like you said, I think the potential quarterback on this roster is Dylan Lonergan, but there is in no way, shape, or form I'm throwing a true freshman out there behind this O-line against Texas or anybody like that at this point in the season. You're asking for failure. Now, if Alabama does the unthinkable, which I do not think this is going to happen, and loses like one or two more games, like let's say we lose to Ole Miss and then we lose to A&M. All right, and you're sitting at 3 losses, okay? I say you scrap the season and you throw Dylan Lonergan in there and see what he's got. Why not? Because, I mean, next year, Julian Sayin's going to be in here, number 1 or number 2 quarterback, wherever you look, in next year's class. So
Wait. Huh?
Julian
Oh,
Sayin.
wait, sorry. I was thinking you were talking about Julian Lewis. I was like,
No, Julian
when
Sayin.
did he commit and go to Bama?
He won the Elite 11. He won the Elite 11. He's going to be out. He's going to be a freshman incomer next year. If I had to put all my money on it, he's going to be the starting quarterback as a freshman, no matter if Jalen Milroe finishes the year out this year or not. I think we see 3 transfers from Alabama's quarterback room next year, probably. And they're probably all 3, the 1, 2, and 3 guys, unless Milroe can just can turn it around this year. But, I mean, if you get to a point of desperation like that where Bama has 3 wins and you're midway through the season, or 3 losses, excuse me, and you're midway through the season or like towards the end of the season, I say you scrap it and see what you got in Lonergan. But I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I think this team is going to galvanize. I think they're going to regroup. I mean, we know what the defense is capable of. They played well. I was not mad at all at the defense's performance. I was more mad at the ineptability on offense and them kind of leaving the defense out for dry, basically. I thought receivers played all right. I thought tight ends played all right. The receivers made some really tough contested catches. I'd like to see him get open a little bit more, but when you don't have enough time in the pocket, it's not going to matter either way. So I think I kind of touched on every position group there. Oh, and special teams was amazing. I thought Burnip and Reichard were obviously great. But I obviously can't say enough good things about Texas. I really underrated them, and I had them at number 4, and I think they're a top 4 team in the country. I don't know about you, but we know what Texas is. They usually lose a game or two that they're not supposed to every year. Could that still happen? Yes, but they look like a playoff caliber team to me. They look like a national championship caliber team to me. And what did I say last week about the players who come in and win at Bryant-Denny Stadium? Who were they? Who were the quarterbacks? Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Chad Kelly, the outlier, and Joe Burrow. Could Quinn Ewers be added to the list of Heisman Trophy winners to come in and beat Bama in Bryant-Denny Stadium?
See.
Could one of their receivers, A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy, Jatavian Sanders went off. I mean, 5 catches, 114 yards. So could one of those guys be added to the list of Heisman Trophy caliber players to come in and beat Alabama? And then if not, could either one of these could Texas be a national championship team? I think so. Obviously time will tell. And the Big 12, I don't think it's that as competitive this year as it was last year. I think Texas is a playoff team. I don't know about you, but I think they are.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that more later. We talked about Alabama, Texas for 30 minutes. You good? You got anything left
I'm
on
sorry that I talked a lot, but I mean, you won't hear a lot about Alabama for a little bit, especially after next week. So let's move on.
Yeah, going to be one of the biggest games of the regular season when you look back on it. So,
yeah,
I mean, I definitely get it. I'll touch on Georgia just a little bit. 145-3, first quarter. Not awful, not great. I mean, we drove the ball, took like 7 minutes off the clock because, I mean, I don't want to make the excuses that all the coaches are making where you look up and 10 minutes are off the clock. But, I mean, that's what Georgia was doing against Ball State. They were just moving the ball at ease. And then got down, bad set of downs, ended up missing a 28-yard kick, and then, didn't score the next drive. I think we had an 8-play drive, ended up having to punt, and then that was it for the first quarter. So not a great first quarter for us because they were also, I mean, Ball State was able to sustain a couple of drives.
Hold up. So y'all ran the ball 28 times for a total of
99 yards. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
so
very not good.
I was going to hit that. I mean, but we did dominate second quarter on. Defense had 3 picks. I believe their team was 0 for 9 on third downs against the ones. Of course, when the two's in, it's different. But defense looked elite. Offense left a little to be desired. But I'm reserving my judgment for this week at South Carolina. Not at South Carolina, at Samford. But I mean, I'm excited to see how it goes. If we come out again with another slow start, that's when I'll admit that, maybe our offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo, could use some different play calling. Maybe we're just going to have to be a second half team, And I mean, we've looked really good in the second half, both games. But again, those aren't against great opponents. Biggest thing leaving this game, Javon Bullard, potential All-American safety, went down with an injury, something to his ankle, I believe. Definitely going to be out this week, probably. Potentially out in the future.
So who's going to replace Bullard?
Don't know exactly. Obviously, Malachi, in my opinion, best safety in the nation. He's there. What they could do is slide Tyke Smith out to safety instead of playing star and put Jonel Aguero, the freshman, at star. Or what they did during this past game is kept Tyke Smith at star and they rotated David Daniel and Dan Jackson in at safety. So, I mean, that's what they'll probably do. Again, I mean, South Carolina's not great, but they're definitely, I mean, they're a little formidable. So they might cause some issues, but I don't expect to be scared by this game.
So, question: I'm looking at the box score here for the Georgia Ball State game. Who did Ball State start at quarterback? I'm assuming the guy that threw 3 picks.
Yeah.
Well, their backup, Lane Hatcher, was a walk-on at Alabama.
Yeah, I remember that during the game. Yeah. They brought him in. And, I mean, he sucked against the ones. Like,
those 16 for 82 is not awful, though.
What I was about to say, those 82 yards, I'm pretty sure like 60 of them came against the twos. Which, I mean, the twos still should not be allowing that many yards to Ball State, but still. I mean, they weren't doing it.
The rushing number for Georgia does concern me, though. I mean, that's almost 2.8 a carry. I know it's early on, but, I mean, that's what y'all's trademark is. I mean, or what it has been in previous years.
And that is not what it is anymore.
I know it's not what it is anymore, but Georgia should be able to run for more than 2.8 a carry.
Oh, believe me, I know. And the O-line knows it as well. Tate Ratledge talked about it. SVP talked about it. They need to be better. I think they will be, especially when we open up the playbook a little bit, because safeties were crashing down to like 5 yards within the box. And so there were some plays with 10 people in the box. And I know that's not a great excuse. But But I believe when that happens, if that happens in an SEC game, Mike Bobo is not going to be afraid to take a shot, and he's not going to be afraid to open up the playbook because Brock Bowers wasn't even in the game past like 4 minutes left in the second quarter. Because I mean, we're just experimenting, trying new things out. But that's enough about Georgia.
Well,
We'll
I
find
will say one more thing about Georgia. You didn't give your guy any love. Where's the Cash
Makai
Jones love?
Muse. Makai
Dude,
Muse.
Cash Jones.
Oh, him too. Both
He
of
got a
them.
touchdown. He had a little tutty catch, didn't he?
No, Makai Muse had our first touchdown of the game, 69-yard punt return touchdown to open up the scoring, get us hot. And then Cash Jones, great ball from Carson Beck, great catch from Cash Jones. Both my guys showing out. I told you to keep an eye on both of them.
Obviously, Texas, Alabama, biggest game of the week. I wouldn't say it was the biggest surprise of the week, though. I think that is the Miami Hurricanes beating up A&M by 15. I thought this game would be a lot.
It's a surprise.
I know. I thought this game would be a lot more close. I was a lot more high on A&M, but I mean, I'm looking at this Tyler Van Dyke, and we know that Miami is. They don't really have the horses on the outside that definitely not what A&M has. They're going to be a more running centric football team. Tyler Van Dyke threw 21 of 30 for 374 yards and 5 touchdowns. Yeah, he was a guy that Alabama really wanted, really was going after in the portal. Ended up with Tyler Buckner, which that has not helped out at all. We got the wrong Tyler. Anyway, I mean, he showed you that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the country. No defense, which is crazy because I thought this A&M defense, especially the defensive front, would be a lot better than they are. Just looking at players, just from what they were a top 20 defense last year, and they didn't lose many guys on that front. Obviously, a ton of talent in the receiving room. They didn't really disappoint there. Connor Wegman did throw a couple of interceptions, but they really just couldn't get a run game going. 29 carries for 97 yards as a team. And then obviously the two turnovers that hurts. So they were -2 in the turnover category. So that's pretty much what did it for A&M. But the ACC looking even more competitive this year now that Clemson's kind of dwindled, I would say, a little bit. Obviously Florida State is the premier team in that conference, but maybe Miami can capitalize on the whole Clemson under being not as good as they typically are, and I think that Miami may be able to. And I mean, I'm a big Cristobal fan, and I like what I'm seeing. So we'll see. I mean, there's still 10 games left to be played in the regular season, but I think it's impressive that they beat A&M so soundly.
I'm not going to talk much about this game because I told you in 2021, I told you 2022. I've been saying it since the start of the season. We talked about it with Josh Pate this weekend. I don't know why. I have no clue why A&M is always expected to be good. I've told you for 3 straight years, they're overrated. They suck. They're not good. They can't win. So I don't know why it surprises you that they lost by 15. I mean, I thought they were going to cover, but it doesn't surprise me that this is the result.
If they would, because I pay attention to the recruiting, and their recruiting is just so good.
Their recruiting is great. But
I don't know how it doesn't translate on the field, especially with a national championship.
Because Jimbo sucks. That's why. And also, I mean, their recruiting was really great in what was that class 2021, but over half those guys are gone. And so, I mean,
they've still been recruiting at a good pace.
Yeah, their
last year, so
their recruiting is good, but recruiting doesn't translate always. I mean, Florida has good recruits a lot of the time. Florida sucks right. I mean, it's just the way the cookie crumbles. Anyway, Miami interested to see. I'll say it right now, but they're not a top 25 team for me. They don't get that much credit for beating a bad A&M team. Connor Wegman's really good, but that is the sole bright spot of this team. That is it.
Well, and I told Stewart, their receiver room and
Evan Stewart,
their receiver room and Wegman are really good.
So, I mean, I think Miami could make some noise, but
Wegman's still young though. Wegman, people forget he's a sophomore and he only started about half their games last year. So he's still a young guy. So he's got to get better. He's got to get better for sure. But
last thing, this team won't be anything until they buy out Jimbo Fisher, which maybe they'll do this year. Maybe they don't.
Might happen.
If they don't, they're still not going to be anything. They can still have upsets because, like you said, they have a talented roster. But I mean, they're never going to be anything.
Yeah, and I want shift gears here. I want to check in on my Wazoo Cougars. Okay, Washington State taking down Wisconsin at home by 31-22, a final of 9 points separation. I've been high on Washington State. They were my sleeper team this year, one of them, especially in the Pac-12. Their second-year transfer from Incarnate Word, Cameron Ward, 21 of 33 for 208, 2 touchdowns. I think he is a very quality quarterback, someone that's often overlooked in that conference. They've got some talent out on the edge, too, with Lincoln Victor, who actually threw a 39-yard pass, which was pretty cool to watch. And they're not the best team running the ball, but Cam Ward with the ball in his hands, he can run the ball and really, set things apart for that offense. But, man, Wisconsin running the ball. Braylon Allen had 7 carries for 20 yards, and backup Ches Malussi, 12 carries for 50 yards. And they only ran the ball 29 times for 91 yards and a touchdown. So, and that's their bread and butter. And if that's not working, obviously Tanner Mordecai should never throw 40 passes in a game. So you can tell that running game just wasn't working. And when it's not working, Wisconsin's in big trouble. So
I know
they can't run the ball this year. They're not going to win games. So
I know you were big on Washington State, and I hate to do this again, but why was Wisconsin a top 25 team? They weren't good. They have Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen is good. I don't care what his stat line shows. He's really
Chaz
good.
Malussi's good too. They have a good little 1-2 punch at running back.
Hey, who else? They don't have anyone outside of that. Their
They
defense.
don't have anyone on the.
Their defense is
they don't have
decent.
receivers. They don't
Their
have
defense is decent.
Yeah.
Their running backs are good. Everything else bad.
Mordecai's a good quarterback. He's better than what people think he is. He's a top 25, 30 quarterback in college football.
Not. Anyway, Washington State, very one-dimensional. I know you're high on them. I think they can beat teams like this who are, I guess borderline top 25 teams. Don't know why they would be in the top 25. Like if they went up against Iowa, I think they could beat Iowa. But any team that can turn them into a one-dimensional team, I think they're going to struggle. So once they get into the meat of the Pac-12, I don't think it looks good for them because Pac-12 is the best conference in college football right now. And I don't even think it's close, really.
Not. The SEC definitely has not. The SEC definitely has not been good.
It is not.
Conference.
And is that all for Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Do
you have another game you want to highlight or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tennessee.
Okay, Tennessee. Yeah.
Let's go visit the most overrated player in college football, Joe Milton. Another bad week from him. Stat line won't show, but he's going up against Austin Peay, and they were winning by 7 at half. Which, granted, I mean, Georgia has slow starts, but Georgia still looked good in their first 2 games. And, they can still go back to who they were, whereas Tennessee can't. Joe Milton's not good. If their running game didn't go off, Jalen Wright for 13 for 118 and Jabari Small 13 for 95, they would have been in trouble because Joe Milton, I've been saying it, gonna keep saying it.
Well, Jake,
don't know why people overrate him.
No offense to Tennessee, they should not be compared to Georgia. They are not on the same playing field right now in terms of talent or anything that Georgia is. And yes, they've gotten off to a slow start. I still stand by my Heisman pick because I believe he has it in him. We'll see what happens. You never know once you get hot, and once if your team starts beating good teams and you play well in those games, that's just going to bolster. And who knows? I mean, Tennessee could end up. And what I was surprised at this upcoming weekend, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, on Thursday night and Friday when we post it on Friday morning. You guys will be able to listen, but. The Tennessee-Florida game that's upcoming this weekend, Tennessee's only favored by, I think, 6.5 right now, which you would think that line is very small. I know it's on the road, but that Florida team did not look good against Utah. And I think Vegas is kind of showing you how they feel about Tennessee so far this year.
I thought it was
they haven't looked very impressive. I checked it earlier; it was 6.5 at ESPN.
It must have dropped a point. Yeah, it's 6.5 now. It was 7. It opened at 7. Yeah, that's the last game I want to preview.
I want one more, and we're done.
Yeah,
one more review, and that is the Colorado Buffaloes and Nebraska. First off, I want to start off with the losers. Jeff Sims.
Bad.
He is awful.
Bad.
He is terrible. I don't know what I was thinking when I thought this dude was going to be good this year.
I'm with you, son.
There is no way this man should be throwing a pass in college football. He needs to go ahead and just change positions. He needs to play running back or something because this dude cannot throw the football. He sucks. He had 10 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown, so very good running the ball. This man, 9 of 15 from 106, and one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in my entire life. Just I couldn't understand what I
No,
did not
I
understand what
mean,
I was
if this Nebraska team had a confident quarterback, they would have won against Minnesota, and they
and they
could
would
have.
have made it close.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. Well, it was a close game. It was 36-14. I mean,
I
Jeff Sims,
mean, that's 22 points. That's not very
Jeff,
close in my
well, no,
opinion.
no, the score doesn't always indicate it though. Jeff Sims had 4 turnovers. I mean, their defense was doing good, but they just kept giving Colorado the ball at midfield or better the whole entire game. And so,
Turnovers are where it was lost.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Nebraska really stood no chance with Jeff Sims back there at QB. So I think they got to make a change. I mean, I was high on Jeff, not high,
Who are you going to make a change with though? Their backup quarterback went 2 of 6 for 13, and the
but
third string was 0 for
but
1.
hey, but at least he threw an intercept or a touchdown with no interceptions, unlike Jeff
I mean,
Sims.
if that's what you want to, if that's how you want to grade him, I mean,
I don't know.
I I
They
don't
got to
know.
get.
I think they might just want to run the Wildcat the rest of the year. I mean, that might be in their best interest. But yeah, I thought their defense was going to be a little bit better. Or I still don't think we really know a ton about this Colorado team and what they're really capable of. Because I thought Nebraska has a pretty solid defense. I mean, obviously they're not anything amazing, but I thought that they'd at least hinder Colorado to probably under 30 points. And Colorado, Shadur Sanders looked great. I mean, he really looks like he's a field general. He knows what he's doing out there. He knows where he wants to go with the ball. He's got all the arm talent in the world. You saw him scramble. He looked good scrambling. I mean,
So
Dylan
I
came out looking great again. Xavier Weaver. I mean, they've got 3 or 4 guys they can throw the football to, and a couple guys that can run it. So they've got
and
weapons. They've got
I
weapons. I just think when they play, one more thing before I let you take it away.
you got it.
I just think when they play better competition, the war in the trenches is going to show. And because they're so undersized in the trenches at O line and D line, that's when it's going to start getting a little nitpicky about how they play. So when they play Oregon, when they play USC, even though USC is not known for their great defensive, those guys look different. And we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to say never because Dion has proved a lot of people wrong already. But I think that's some cause of concern when they start playing those bigger teams.
And they've already impressed me a lot. You know, I thought they were going to open up the season 1-1. Did I? Maybe it was 0-2. I don't know. I thought they were going to be competitive. I had them going 6-6. I probably have them going 7-5 now. But like you said, once they play these teams, they have Oregon and USC back to back. And I know those teams aren't the best defensively. I mean, they're still Pac-12 teams. You know, they pride themselves on their offense, but I mean, they still got dudes in the trenches, and Colorado does not. And so they have the athletes that can do it. If they were playing 7-on-7, I have a lot of confidence in them. But you're playing 11-on-11, and those defensive and offensive linemen make a big difference. The 3 I didn't want to hit on these games, but we mentioned how the SEC is struggling. Mississippi State, Kentucky, Missouri, barely etching out their cupcakes. I know Mississippi State was playing Arizona, not the
Arizona's a
easiest
solid
cupcake.
team. They're solid. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention them because they could have very, very easily lost that game. They went into OT, and Arizona's not a good team.
Oh, and Mississippi State had won the turnover battle by like +4, and they still had to go win in overtime,
I did not know that.
which is
So,
insane.
like I said, SEC not looking great this year. Luckily, Ole Miss pulled out a win against Tulane. So.
Did you know that Will Rogers has only thrown 42 passes
40,
this season?
I thought it was 46, but yeah.
It was 46 or 42. It's like
not a lot.
last year he threw that like 46 passes like every game. It's ridiculous.
I think they got to give the ball to him. He's their best player. So,
yeah.
Anyway, let's transition into a moment of best bets, shall we?
How did we do this week, Jay? Look, how the table turns, baby. How it turns.
So I mean, I said you went 1 for 8. You did not do bad. I went 1 for 8 last week. You went 3 for 9, and I went 6 for 9. This week, not too shabby. I went 7 for 11, and you went 8 for 11, and we both had a push in there. So we predicted 12 games. There was we both had Utah -7, and Utah won by 7. So obviously pushes, but I mean we played pretty well. The only one that we had different, because we had all the exact same ones. The only one we had different was Jalen Milroe, and I kind of give credit to both of us. We both got it right. My reasoning was correct. My prediction was wrong, just because Alabama didn't play exactly how I thought they would.
Yeah.
But the reasoning was there for it.
Yeah, but I was 3 of 3 on player bets. Connor Wegman got had the 2 touchdown passes. He needed 1.5. Jalen Milroe, 262.5 passing and rushing. I think he was about 280, 290, something like that. And then Will Shepherd just had to have 1 touchdown receiving. He had 2. So, and I've put 2 bets on Will Shepherd this year already, and I've won both of them. So
maybe
every time he comes up, I might just bet the over every time.
Maybe we just take the games out of it, because I was 2 for 2 on my player props this week. I had Travis Hunter over 63.5 receiving and Will Shepherd over 62.5 receiving. So,
and then Auburn continues to be my Achilles heel. I had them as my lock of the week this week, and they beat Cal by 4.
that game was ugly.
They look really bad. Can't wait to play them. Actually, I could wait to play them. We play them in Auburn. Can't wait to see Georgia beat up on them. There we go.
We play them at Auburn too.
Yeah, but it's different. It's different.
We're their Super Bowl now. Y'all aren't.
I'm sorry. The Iron Bowl will always be their Super Bowl. Y'all are not their Super Bowl. It's always the Iron Bowl. That rivalry runs much deeper.
Texas fans chanting, "We want." Texas fans now chanting, "We want Georgia." It's not "We want Bama" anymore.
Well, they got Bama. Why would they chant "We want Bama" again if they just beat us? And it's kind of stupid. But and then obviously I thought UCF would cover the 3.5 against Boise State, but they ran into some trouble there, escaping. They only won by 2.
Barely winning.
I don't think that Boise State team's any good. I think UCF just had a rough game. But shout out to our former classmate, Kobe Hudson. Dude went absolutely bonkers in that game. Had like 5 catches for 145 yards. Like,
go Kobe.
Yeah, he had a good.
He doesn't know who we are. At least doesn't know who I am. But still, shout out Kobe.
He probably knows who I am just because I helped him out with his homework. But
I had. How long was he in our classes? Like a week? In 8th grade.
He was in there 8th grade. He was in there all of 8th grade, I thought.
No, but
I knew him before 8th grade.
Yeah, that was probably 7th grade, because I moved in there in 8th grade and he was there for like a week or 2.
He transferred to Troop and went, because they had a better football team. Yeah. But hopefully we'll come back with week 3 of best bets this upcoming week. And hopefully we'll kind of continue on our pace. But let's just touch real quick on one of the craziest stories so far in the college football year. I felt like we had to just talk about it for a couple minutes, just because of the stuff like this really doesn't happen often.
Yeah. Don't take too long on it, but just give a little basic.
Mel Tucker ran into a little issue here where he was apparently seen doing some obscene things on a telephone FaceTime call that came up with 37. There were 37 FaceTime calls. Now, my question to the girl who files this sexual harassment charge is, why don't you just hang up the phone if you're seeing something you don't want to see? Now, I understand she is an employee of Michigan State, and she felt as if maybe she couldn't escape this, and that I understand. But at the same time, this has been going on for apparently over a year. This investigation has been happening for over a year. And there are still developments every day that I'm hearing that are looking like Mel Tucker might not be as much in the wrong as we thought he was. I don't really know exactly where this is going to go, but he's got a pretty hefty buyout now that after the big extension he signed a couple years ago. So I think it'll be interesting to see what Michigan State does, because they were not the team they were last year in 2021 last year. And then if they can get out of this buyout, if they feel like Mel Tucker is not taking this team in the right direction, they have cause to fire him and not pay him anything. So that's definitely a situation to look out for up in East Lansing, because
I'm not exactly well informed anymore on it. I haven't looked at it in a few days. But I applaud Michigan State. The timing might be a little bit weird, because I think when it was released, that's when they suspended him. But they did suspend him without cause, and anything around sexual assault, sexual harassment, immediately do some investigation. If there's any basis of it, take him out of there, and look into it even more. And that's what they've been doing. That's what they're going to continue to do. Like I said, I'm not caught up, but I mean, good on Michigan State.
And one interesting development, former Michigan State head coach Mark D'Antonio is now listed as an associate head coach. So he's going to go back in and help coach the team up. So that's all we'll talk about for Mel Tucker. We'll finish the show here with our top 25, our new week 3 going week 3 top 25. Now it's just to start this off. I'm going to set this is how I figure out my top 25. From here on out the rest of the year. My top 25 will be, who do I think will win right now on a neutral field? Who do I think will win right now on a neutral field?
Hey, you're taking over.
This
You're
isn't
taking
spread.
mine.
This isn't spread or analytical. This is just eye test what I've seen so far and opinionated based.
Thank
So
you.
you can disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm just saying this is just what I have seen.
No, I'm just happy
So,
we have the same rationale now. So
okay.
before, our top 25s were different because of our rationale. So now I think they're going to look, more similar than they did.
Okay, so why don't you kick us off 25 through 21, Jake?
Yeah, I'll take it. I do want to preface my top 25 actually had no new teams or old teams leaving.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought my top 25 from last week stayed my top 25.
Okay.
But there was a good amount of shakeout in here. I think 9 or so teams changed, maybe 10.
Okay.
So top 25 through 21, I have Arkansas, UCLA. They didn't move. I have Tulane at 23. They dropped 3 spots. And then I have UCF and Duke. UCF barely squeaked out with a win, but a win's a win. It is what it is. No other teams outside the top 25 really impressed me enough to move into it. Tulane, I know they lost by 17 to Ole Miss, but that game was a lot closer than the score indicates. It was a game probably, I don't know the exact time, but probably like 5 minutes left in the fourth. And they were out without their best player, one of the best QBs in college football, Michael Pratt, and they still made it a game. So could have very easily won, not easily, but could have won if they had Michael Pratt in there. So overall, didn't affect them too much for me, and they were going up against a good Ole Miss team. So.
And just a side note about college football this year, I think we've seen exceptional quarterback play. I mean, I think in the last few years, we haven't seen as great quarterback play. I mean, obviously, there have been some great quarterbacks, but just across the board, this year has been a really good year for quarterbacks.
It's been incredible.
So, and we're only 2 weeks in. So, all right, 25 through 21 for me. At number 25, I've got Duke. At 24, I've got the Iowa Hawkeyes. At 23, I've got UCF. At 22, I've got Colorado, and at 21, I've got Miami. So, like I said, I was pretty impressed with Miami, especially Tyler Van Dyke and their offense. I think they've got a pretty good offense. Defense is definitely very questionable, but we'll see how that works out. I couldn't ignore Colorado any longer, especially with the dominant win they had. Had to throw them in. I've been high on UCF, and obviously close win, but they etched it out on the road in a tough place to play. Boise's not the easiest place to play. Granted, it's not the best, but And then I value Iowa's defense. I think their defense is really. I mean, obviously they always have a great defense, and their offense is even better this year than it has been in like the last 20 years. And then Duke. I mean, they beat Clemson earlier this year. They look really good so far. I really trust Riley Leonard. So
yeah, I mean, I don't
20 through 16.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't have Miami in my top 25. The rest of your teams, except Iowa, I don't like it. They beat Utah State by 14. They beat Iowa State by 7. Neither of those teams are good at all, really. So I think when they get tested by any average team, they're probably going to lose.
They could win their division, though. I think they might win their division.
Yeah, but they probably have the worst division in college football.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
There aren't divisions really anymore, though. I mean, really, this is the last year there will be divisions in college football. So
to think of. My number 20 team, I got North Carolina, barely etched out a win against App State, but I mean, it is App State, known for
App State's a lot better.
I wouldn't say it's a good win, but for especially that game, a win is a win. So they did drop a few rankings just because, I think after the South Carolina game, maybe I was a little bit too high on them. I think sitting around 20 is about where they're at for me because, that defense still isn't good. I think South Carolina's O-line just maybe had a bad game. We'll find out against Georgia, I think. 19, one of the biggest drops, Utah. I dropped them 4 points because they did not look good against Baylor. Barely etched out a win. I mean, granted, they're still without Cam Rising, but until they get him back, they could be on upset alert until I don't know what their schedule looks like, but it'll be scary. 18, Oklahoma, they didn't move. Ole Miss moved up 2 spots to 17. Maybe I could have moved them up more, but wasn't all that impressed from them. Like I said, Tulane could have beat them if they had their starting QB. I think they would have won just because I believe Michael Pratt is that good. But, I mean, again, going up against a top 25 team, a win's a win, especially on the road. I know Tulane isn't the the hardest stadium to play in, but you're not at home. Then I have Kansas State didn't move. Biggest jump, actually, maybe second biggest jump. Obviously, Texas jumped a lot, but second biggest jump, Colorado up to 15. I got some belief in them.
Oh, we're only supposed to go to 16.
Oh, sorry, my fault.
Go ahead, finish your 15.
Yeah, Colorado jumped all the way up to 15 for me. Any team behind them, because we have the same rationale now. Any team behind them, I see them beating on a neutral site field. Ole Miss is maybe the exception. It just depends on what Ole Miss you get. But Colorado's look good. I think any other team above them probably blows them out. But I mean, they've looked good. I think they easily go into Oregon 4-0 3-0. And I'm excited to see where that game goes. So you got it now.
Yeah. So at 20, I've got Oregon State. Obviously, I liked what I'm seeing from DJU. I think the system fits them a lot better. And they've got some talented players around him. So 19, I've got Washington State. We already talked about them. 18, I've got Kansas State. They got a big game coming up this upcoming week. Josh Pate will be on hand in Columbia, Missouri to watch that game. Really, I think that game could go either way. I will lean Kansas State to win and to cover that game as a little kind of a precursor. I think they're favored by 5. But I like Will Howard, and I trust in him. 17, I've got LSU. 16, I've got Utah. And then obviously, I think Utah is going to be fine once Cam Rising gets back. But until then, like you said, they're on upset alert every week. And then 15, I've got Oklahoma. I've really liked what I've seen from them offensively so far. Their defense seems to be a little bit improved, even though they really haven't played anybody. So I'm sure we'll truly see what they're made of coming up here shortly. But since you already did 15, Jake, screwing up. Let's do your 14 through 11.
Go ahead.
You want me to go? Okay, so 14, I've got North Carolina. So I'm a little bit higher on them than you are. I think it's mainly just because this defense has improved so much. I know App State scored on them a little bit, but I like App State. I think they're always a team that is
always
out of the Power 5. They're probably like one of the scariest programs in my opinion. You don't want to see them on your.
I don't want to play them this season.
You don't want to see you on, especially
because they get treated. They get treated as a cupcake, but they're not a cupcake.
They are not. So 13, I've got Washington. I moved Tennessee down out of the top 10 to 12. And then I'm very high on Ole Miss. I have them at 11. Now, what is troubling for me with Ole Miss is Quinshon Judkins was a non-factor in the Tulane game. I mean, I think he had he averaged like less than 2 yards a carry. And I know that they were stacking the box and they were playing that. But once they play teams like Alabama, once they play teams like Georgia that actually will stack the box and make Jackson Dart beat them with their arm, that's troublesome for them because that's what they want to do is run the ball. So I still think they're a great team. I think Jackson Dart is a great quarterback. Receivers are a little bit better than I thought. Defense is a little bit better. So I'm a lot higher on the Rebels. I've got them at 11.
Yeah. So 14, I got Oregon State, my sleeper of the year. I think they're performing really well. I'm excited to see them get into Pac-12 play. 13, I got Oregon. They dropped 2 spots just because they didn't play well at Texas Tech either. I get it. Texas Tech, kind of like App State, just in a Power 5 setting. Always kind of scary to play. But they lost to Wyoming the week before. They didn't look good in this game. And Oregon really struggled against them. Number 12, I got LSU. Once they play some teams, they could easily go up to a top 10 team for me. It's just, that FSU game still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. They handled business this week. That's all. Number 11,
Grambling State.
Yeah. Number 11, you're not going to like it. I got Bama. Bama was playing at home and lost by 10. If they were playing Texas on a neutral site field, I believe they probably would have lost by, I don't know, maybe 20. And especially if Xavier Worthy just didn't drop that touchdown pass.
Or Bert Auburn made the field goal.
Do what?
I said they missed a field goal too. They left 7 points off the board.
So I don't remember that. But yeah. And again, Bama still has a lot to play for. This game really does not affect them at all. I just think it reveals all the areas they're weak in, and they're weaker than I thought they were. So
If anything, I think, like we were saying earlier, it shows you where you got to improve. And I think
yeah, no,
it's not
I think
necessarily a bad thing for
I
Alabama.
think this game actually helps them a lot. Of course, they went down in my ranking 6 points. But again, I think you're exactly correct. Because they got everything to play for in front of them. And
Yeah.
they could with that loss, and if they have a loss to, I don't know, let's just throw out Tennessee, because that game doesn't affect them too much. As long as they take care of business in the SEC West, they could be the first 2-loss team to make the playoff. It depends on how everyone else does. I'd be kind of mad if they do that, but they
Well,
could.
wouldn't you like to lose earlier in the season too against probably the best opponent you play? So
100%.
kind of how I affect it. But you just said they dropped 6 points for you. Well, I think they dropped 7 for me. I've got Alabama at number 10.
Okay.
I've got USC at number 9. Mainly, I think I put Alabama behind USC just because I think that game would be a shootout, and I trust USC a lot more than I trust Alabama to score. 8, I've got Notre Dame, very high on Notre Dame. I love Sam Hartman. I think he's a great quarterback. Probably he behind Caleb and Drake May, he's the third best quarterback in college football in my opinion. 7, I've got Penn State. They're really looking like a complete team. Interesting game this weekend though. On the road at Illinois. It's an interesting game because Illinois is not. They've got a good defense. Luke Altmaier's the quarterback there. He's okay, but I mean it's hard when you go on the road in the Big Ten. And then at number 6, I've got Oregon, another team that looked pretty good on the road against Texas Tech. I thought, like I said, you didn't really think that was going to be a big game, but I thought Texas Tech had everything to play for. I thought they were going to lay it all out on the line, especially the storyline with Tyler Shuck being the old Oregon quarterback and welcoming in his old team. I thought that was going to be something that a good close game, and it was. So, but I think Oregon's going to be the best team out there in the Pac-12. So I've got them at number 6.
I will say I'm probably a little bit too critical on them because they probably played their worst game. They had 4 turnovers and Texas Tech had 0, and they still were able to squeak out a win. So,
And
I mean,
cover.
yeah, props to them. But anyway, my top 10 were 10 through 6. I have Ohio State at 10. They have not shown me anything these first 2 weeks. And Kyle McCord, I don't think he's the one. Of course, they have the best wide receiver room in America, but also their defense, I don't know what they're going to do when they actually have to play someone. That game against Notre Dame very well could go either way. And the number 9, I have Tennessee. I don't want them in my top 10. I hate Tennessee. They were winning by 7 against Austin Peay. Joe Milton is not good, but the teams behind, the only one I could see teams beating them are LSU and Oregon probably behind them. And just right now, they haven't shown me enough.
You don't think Alabama could beat them?
No, I think Bama would beat a lot more teams than Tennessee. Like Bama could beat teams ahead of them. I don't think Tennessee could, but with how much Bama's defense or their defensive back struggled, I think that complements Joe Milton because all he can do is throw it deep. He doesn't need to throw it intermediate. He can't throw it intermediate. And so I think they would just torch Alabama's DBs like they did last year. I think that would be the game plan. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. When is that? Like mid-October?
Third Saturday of October.
Yeah, there we go. And then number 8, I have Notre Dame. Huge on them. They've impressed me a lot. I don't know where I had them my first week, probably like 12 or so. But they've looked good. Number 7, huge on Washington, mainly because of Michael Penix. I think he's the 3rd best QB in the nation. I think he's really good. He's a stud. Might be a first rounder. And then number 6, USC. Defense, still pretty lifeless, but that offense is best in the nation probably. So.
Yeah, so for 5 for me, I've got Ohio State. I just have them over here because I think the talent is just, you can't overlook it. I think at some point they're going to figure it out. Obviously, Ryan Day today named Kyle McCord the starter for the rest of the season. I think he'll end up figuring it out. He was a highly recruited guy, highly touted recruit coming out of high school. He's had plenty of years in this system. I think he'll figure it out eventually. I just think he needs, like Jalen Milroe, some more experience. At number 4, I have Florida State. Obviously, I think they're probably going to run the table in the ACC. They look great so far. Really not much to say about them. This is where the shakeup happens. Number 3, I've got the Michigan Wolverines. Obviously, Michigan hasn't covered either week they played. I don't know if people know that, but they haven't done anything crazy. They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. They beat them well. They just haven't covered the spread. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh's not coaching. Don't really think it. Obviously, it doesn't matter at all. They don't play anybody. But I mean, they've just kind of been coasting, and we know what they're capable of. But I don't think we've seen the best from them. We've seen a lot of vanilla game plans from them. Number 2, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. I have them at number 2, mainly because of what I've seen out of Texas, who's my number 1 team. Going on the road, being Alabama by 10, and really 10 points doesn't even show that beatdown. They beat us better than 10 points. But Georgia, obviously, they've been kind of slow and rocky out of the gates in both games they've played. I think they'll take care of business against South Carolina on Saturday. Now the line in that game, 27.5 right now, is very interesting. I don't really know. I would not touch that game. I don't know which way it's going to go, but Georgia definitely will take care of business, at least by 3 touchdowns or more. Obviously shaky, like I said, out of the gate. And them not being able to run the ball is very concerning. I know that's probably in the back of your head. You don't really have to worry about it right now.
In the front of my head.
You don't really have to worry about it right now, though. So that's something that you won't have to worry about towards the end of the year. And then Texas, obviously, their defense is for real. Their offense is for real. They've got one of the best play callers in the country in Sarkisian. They're for real. Texas is back, and I've got them at number 1.
No, I didn't want you to say that this
Texas
show.
is back, and I've got them at number 1.
Not.
So, we'll see what they do the rest of the year. They could pull the common Texas and lose 2 games in the Big 12 like they do pretty much every year. But I feel like this year's just got a different feel.
Real quick.
So I've got
what does Texas, say it in one sentence? What does Texas is back mean? Does it mean they're back
They are competing for national titles.
Okay.
They're
that's
in the
where I
national
disagree.
championship hunt. They're in the race for national championship.
I have them at number 5. They jumped all the way up from number 13 for me. They showed a lot of great things. The reason I have all 4 teams ahead of them is because, Texas O-line still didn't look good. They looked bad against Rice. They didn't look great against Alabama's front 7. And I don't think Alabama's front 7 is that great, especially at inside linebacker. I think y'all struggle there. And D-line is probably a little bit above average, especially considering Alabama's typical front 7. And they could not run the ball. They couldn't convert on 3rd and shorts. They struggled a lot of the game to extend their drives. Explosivity is there. Great wide receivers, could probably score from any yard line on the field. But when they're on 3rd and short, if they make it to the playoff, they're on 3rd and short against this Georgia front 7, or Michigan's front 7, Penn State's front 7, FSU's front 7. If they were already struggling against Bama's, I think they'd struggle a lot against those 4 teams. And then my top 4 hasn't changed. I got Penn State at 4, Michigan at 3, FSU at 2, Georgia at 1. Georgia, have they looked like the number 1 team? No, not at all. Probably for me, they probably looked like the number 4 team, maybe even number 5. But like I said, I'm reserving all my judgment for this week. You could see them shake up. Probably they could go back all the way to number 5 by the end of this week, or unless they lose, then they go back even further. But or they could stay at 1. It just depends on how they come out. If they come out slow again, they're definitely dropping. So we'll see. That one's not set in stone.
What time is Georgia kick off against South Carolina on Saturday?
3:30 Eastern.
Okay.
I do have to mention it. We just got another night game against UAB at 7:30. I don't care. It is a night game. We've had 2, well, really 1.5. 6 p.m. isn't really a night game. It wasn't night until like midway through the 3rd quarter. But 2 bad opponents, but I do not care. We didn't have a single one last year. We had 1 in 2021 and 1 in 2020. So, this is heaven on earth if you're a Georgia fan. I can't wait to get in Sanford under those lights.
And then Alabama kicks it off against South Florida in Tampa at the same time at 3:30. Currently 32-point favorites over South Florida.
That line might be a little sketchy. I mean, South Florida lost everyone.
I think Bama's going to come out angry, and we're going to win by like 40 something. So
Xavier, I mean, they did lose Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn, so they're not exactly talented, but
I think this is a Bama team that, I mean, after a loss, Alabama always covers the spread because they come out pissed off. So we'll see. So those are kind of the 2 weeks. We'll be back, guys. Friday, we'll probably release our next pod Friday morning. We'll preview, week 3. Looking forward to it. It's going to be it's an underrated week. A lot of people have talked about how there's not many great matchups on there, but I think there's some pretty good matchups on there, especially at the noon kick hour. So looking forward to watching that. We'll give you some best bets too. We'll figure out something else for the show, another segment maybe. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. Thank y'all for watching. Definitely like and subscribe. Tell people about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube Podcast. And then apologies for the last podcast. Had some technical difficulties with my shooting my camera and SD card. So we got that out this morning on podcast. Still trying to get it out on YouTube. But it is there to listen to on Apple Podcasts, even though you kind of know the scores already, but you can get our kind of previews for those games from this past week and our insight. But again, for me, for Jake Osteen over in Athens, Georgia, for me here in Tuscaloosa, thanks again, guys, and roll tide.
Go Dogs.